Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Well, in seeking a multi-million euro investment to fund the expansion of his business, the Blackwater Distillery, Peter Mulryan turned to crowdfunding. Whilst this was beneficial to the business on many levels, there was one incident which he now feels compelled to warn business owners about. Peter joins us now to tell us more. Peter, I'd like to start the interview by learning about your own background.
My background actually is in television and radio. I'm a former TV producer and radio producer and presenter. You could say I was driven to drink after 30 years of working in the media. I used to work at RTE, then I went to the UK, and I worked for BBC, Channel 4, Sky, Disney, whoever would pay me. And my hobby was writing about spirits, and I lived for some time in Scotland working for the BBC in Edinburgh and Glasgow. And while there, I could see the passion the Scots had for Scotch whisky. And this is in the 90s. There was nothing like that in Ireland. And it was just, I knew we'd good whisky, I knew we could make good whisky, but we'd no culture of celebrating. It had all been lost. And I thought, that's really weird. I thought, you know what, I'll write a book about this.
So when it came to setting up Blackwater Distillery, what was the vision for the business?
The vision, that's an interesting question. My background as it isn't a business person. I didn't come into this going, you know what, I've had a great idea to make a few bob. Rather, I knew there was a wave coming. Because I knew the industry. I could see in America there was a craft distilling movement growing, which is really interesting, and they were making really interesting whiskies that excited me. I'd be in America and I'd taste them and I go, wow. And I was in London working for the BBC and worked with Richard Carrigan, the chef who owns Bentley's there, for a TV series. And these guys came in one day on a bicycle and they said, we've made a gin. It was Sipsmith gin. We were in London about the distilling business. Sipsmith, one of the, I suppose, the key movers in the craft gin business. And they were starting up, and you could kind of feel the wave coming, that it was coming. It was in America, it had come to London, it would come to Ireland. And I thought, you know what, now's the time to move on this. If I don't do it now, it's not going to happen.
And of course, Peter, one of the challenges with a distillery is in respect of cash flow, because there's a very long wait time from distilling the whiskey to actually selling it.
Oh, yeah, it's a dreadful business model. I mean, you know, if I said to you, you were a businessman, I said to you, what a great idea. I'm going to make something, okay? I'm not going to sell it for 3 years. And in those 3 years, I'm going to lock it in a room, and all the time it's in there, it'll be evaporating. You'd go, oh, thanks, Peter. Close the door on your way out. So it's a bonkers business model. So we had to somehow cash flow it, and gin was the way. You can make gin and turn around and sell it in a week. So and it was a gin boom, which has since softened. So we set up the gin business, and we still are the only producer of gin in the southeast. We do a very nice Wexford strawberry gin made with Wexford strawberries, which is just quite good later in the day. So white spirits, we started in 2014-15. We moved into whiskey in 2018 because we'd sort of made enough money, and we're releasing our first whiskey from the distillery here in West Waterford. We're releasing that in November. So later next month,
So you're at a stage now where you want to scale out of the building that you're in. There's an investment of about 15 million euro required, and as part of that, you looked at crowdfunding. Why crowdfunding?
Crowdfunding for a couple of reasons. I didn't expect to raise more than a couple 100,000 in the crowdfunding. But crowdfunding is interesting for a few reasons. One, it's relatively quick and easy to do. You're going for a popular model where people can put in, I think a 10 or 15 euros was the minimum. So what you're doing in a way is you're doing two things. Is you're funding, you're raising money, and you're giving away equity, a real equity, but you're also saying to people, we're interesting, we're here. You're bringing yourself to the attention of people who wouldn't have known you existed. So we have hundreds of extra names now on our mailing list. So that was another reason to do it. So crowdfunding, yes, you can make some money, but really it's about banging a drum, waving your arms in the air, and hoping that you attract the attention of a larger investor.
And just on that topic, one day you received a phone call from a potential investor.
Yeah, we received a few of these. But one call in particular was interesting because they said, "Look, we like what you're doing. We want to put in $1 million," and that makes you sit up and pay attention, because in my head I need to raise probably 15 million, maybe a bit more, to build a bigger distillery to make this whole business scalable. And I thought, well, absolutely, I'll talk to anyone really. And they said, look, we'd like to meet you, and we're based in Switzerland, and we have a Swiss investor on board. So I thought, oh, fair enough. We've been here before. This could be interesting, and that's how the tale begins.
So talk to us about some of the due diligence that you did prior to going over and meeting them in Amsterdam.
That's a good question. I mean, we took in another investor about a year ago, and the amount of bloody due diligence, my God, it was like, what's your inside leg measurement? It was ridiculous. So I kind of was expecting the wall of pain, and I suddenly realized I was doing more due diligence on them than they were doing on me, and that got me a little bit suspicious. And they said, look, we'd like to meet you anyway. We'll meet you in Amsterdam. I went, well, actually, no, I'm actually in Amsterdam next week because I'm going to a whiskey festival in Eindhoven. So yeah, let's meet. Perfect. So I met the lads, two guys, and they were there, very sharply dressed gentlemen, and they'd start asking bizarre questions that didn't really make much sense. They didn't know much about the business. They didn't know much about anything. I just was getting more and more suspicious. And then they said, did I know anything about cryptocurrencies? And what I know about crypto, you could write them back a very small postage stamp. I said, no, I know nothing about crypto. They said, oh, we made our money in crypto. That's why we're loaded and we've got vineyards in France. And you like what you're doing, and we will give you the money you want. We need to know, though, that your company is in good fettle. So, can you evidence you've got €100,000 in your company account? I was going, yeah, it's a piece of cake. I can do that. I can get you a bank statement. The accountant can sign anything you want. And they said, well, I tell you what. So we're in crypto. Why don't you lodge that 100,000 to a crypto account? And it's your account, and just lodge it there. We'll see it as an act of goodwill, and then we'll transfer you across the $1 million. So, of course, I'm smelling a major rat at this stage. And they took my phone because I didn't understand what crypto was. Look, we'll show you. So they basically set up two apps on my phone, and they said, look, we'll just send you a tenner. There's the tenner. And indeed, on my phone, on this app, there was a tenner. And I was going, this is fantastic. And they said, it's your account, and you just put the 100,000 in there, show it to us on the screen, and we'll send you the money. And that was the end of the meeting. I started thinking, this is very, very weird. This is so strange. So I contacted the app, their help desk, and they were going, did you set the account up? I went, no. They said, do you have the 12-digit access code to your account? No. Yeah, you wouldn't. Don't put any money in there because they have the access code. So as soon as you lodge 100,000, it'll be gone.
So how did you exit that particular meeting in one piece?
Well, I'd already decided I wasn't going to agree to anything in a bar in Amsterdam. I mean, that's not a good idea ever. So look, I just said, look, thank you very much. I'll think about it. Kind of going, this does not feel right. And then, as I said, when I spoke to the guys who ran the app, I was totally convinced that this was a scam. So I replied to the guys going, look, lads, you got my 12-digit code. This is a scam. And I got one text back, which was just a question mark, and then nothing. And no returning phone calls, no returning emails. They've just disappeared back into the woodwork again.
So what advice have you got for business owners listening this morning that are interested in going down that crowdfunding route?
If someone rings you up and says, I'll meet you in a bar in Amsterdam, the answer is no, don't go there. If something's too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
Was there any other investors that came forward that were genuine in respect of it? And how did that go?
Yeah. Well, that's ongoing, because this is the other thing, is that your real investment of this kind of money takes time, takes due diligence. It takes trust, I suppose, and building that trust. And the business we have, it's a very physical business in that it's Victorian. It's a building. It's copper stills. It's casks of whiskey. It isn't like IP, which is just sort of in the ether somewhere. So people have to come over. Like there's an American who's been in contact, who's going to come over in November. We have another investor potentially from France coming over again in November, and that'll just take time. It could take 6 months. It could take longer. That's how long these things take. As I say, I'm looking to raise, if I can, in the region of more than 15 million. So it's a lot of money, and that sort of money, doesn't grow on trees and doesn't hang out in bars in Amsterdam.
And what are you doing now to promote this investment to would-be and potential investors?
Well, this is the interesting thing, is that I think when you're at an investment this size, it's kind of hard to wave your arms in the air. You got to do it in clever ways. So, as I say, the crowdfunding was one way of alerting people that we're on the hunt. Talking to people like you is a good way as well. There are plenty of angels in the southeast and in the south of the country. Letting them know that, we've been in business since 2014. We've got a good track record. We already have a distillery. We've got brands. We're bringing out whiskey. So we're not a startup here. We've been going for several years. So it's a matter of just letting people know we exist, and also then you kind of people know you're there, and then people know people who know other people. So that's kind of where we are at the moment.
And what's the business plan that underpins the Blackwater Distillery?
The business plan is as it's always been, which is that we start with gin, and then we've broadened out the base of the business now into whiskey. So we have a whiskey called Velvet Cap, which we source, we bottle on site here, and then we're bringing out our own whiskey under a different brand, Dirt Grain, and that's coming out at the end of this year, and that'll be an interesting mixed mash bill whiskey, which is back to these whiskies that our grandfathers would have been drinking. In the past 9 months now, we've really been turning up the gas on exports, because any drinks brand in Ireland is only going to survive on exports, So we basically, our commercial manager is currently in New York. I'm just back from another trip to the Netherlands for our new importer in the Netherlands. We've just signed a deal in France, Israel, New Zealand, Australia. It's all in the past few months. So that's the big part of the business now, is getting us export ready, and then we can hopefully tap onto the resources of Enterprise Ireland to guide us along the route.
And for any investor that's listening to this morning's programme that is looking for a distillery to invest in, what are you telling them in terms of an exit plan for them in 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years' time?
There's a couple of exit plans. I think that fact that we're kind of ahead of the curve on what I see as the future of whiskey, which is mixed mash bills, oat, sweet rye. I think that's where the future lies. There are people out there, larger companies, who aren't in the market here, who are interested in getting to the market. So we just kind of need to make sure that we're on their radar. And so we need to be at a position whereby we've proved the concept works, we have these markets opened, and we've got a distillery that's producing enough liquid, and that they can come in and put in more capital to make more, but mostly to put money into brand, to build brand, to put people into export markets, because that's an important way of building. So, yeah, I would imagine that we'd probably be on someone's acquisition list within the next, it's going to take, I'd say, 6-7 years.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Peter Mulryan from the Blackwater Distillery, and I wish Peter every success in securing the required investment.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast.